I'm very happy to talk to you about optimization. So thank you very much, and thanks for me.
Thank you very much. Coming up, we are delighted to have invited Mr. Gary Jackson. That's our 6th keynote speaker. And Gary creates and coordinates new technology, sales, marketing, regional delivery teams, customer and consulting enablement, and partner development for the business analytics team at CSC. And before joining CSC in April 2011, Jackson was CEO and technology evangelist for Socialytics LOL Entertainment Group Limited in Hong Kong. Okay, that was a really long sentence. Where he acted as technology coordinator and implementer for Asia's first social media week. So today his topic is disrupting digital marketing with big data and analytics. So let's let your customers decide. So let's have Gary on stage.
Good afternoon. I'm Gary Jackson. I have to apologize. I just got off a flight from Dubai. So I'm very jet lagged, but that's perfect because normally I speak very quickly. So hopefully it'll slow me down. But what I'm talking about today is something that's affected. It's kind of funny. It just happened. I think if you noticed that we actually just had Obama had his the White House blew up and Obama got killed. As you saw that, right? There was a conversation that completely trashed the stock market. It was a conversation that was just thrown out there and it completely disrupted everything, just like the PowerPoints went out. But it starts a conversation. What's going on? What's happening? How is this going to affect us? Is this guy crazy? So as those things are starting to happen, and as those conversations are happening, are they real? Are they going to affect you? Does everybody remember when we had the ATM runs here in Hong Kong, where there was rumors that were spread out about a certain bank, not going to say the bank, and everyone started pulling money out of the bank? I think this was right 2008. Those conversations can cause detrimental effect all over the place. And what I wanted to talk about today is how can you use big data and analytics to find those conversations and actually contain them, break them down, know where they're coming from, and do it very quickly. And this is something you don't need to buy technology for. You can actually do it yourself. These are all the concepts brought up in that. So, I work for CSC, but in this capacity, I teach. So I teach right across the street at Alpha 8 Institute. So these are some of the concepts that we kind of bring out at Alpha 8. One of the other things I wanted to make sure is when I talk about big data and analytics, I am so sick of people talking about big data in a velocity, variety. It drives me nuts. Because I think there's another V, vomit. Because it really upsets me because of all of these V's. Big data and analytics is about success patterns. When I walked up on stage, you automatically assumed a lot of stereotypes about me. I'm a foreigner in Hong Kong. As my PowerPoints went out, all of these things, there's certain patterns in your mind that they're starting to fit, and you're trying to fit me into those patterns to predict what I'm going to do next so you can anticipate it. That's what big data is about. Big data is about finding success patterns. Don't use big data to find problems. You'll be sitting here for 18 months spending $2 million trying to troubleshoot a problem you'll never figure out. Use big data to find your successes. And I'll ask all of you, what is the success? Why are you here? How do you have a salary? How are you paying your bills? There's the success of your business. Find that success and amplify it. And do not let a conversation destroy that success that's on the social sphere. And that's really where this is about. One more thing I wanted to bring up. I've just said a lot of words in a very short amount of time. I thought the jet lag would slow me down, but it's not. I said a lot of words. You're not going to remember every word that I say, but you're taking the context of it and you're pushing it forward. It's leaving you in an emotion, a feeling. So one of the things I want to make sure that you understand about big data, don't hoard data. Take the context, archive the rest, move. Or you will be sitting around doing nothing with big data for long periods of time. And you'll see that my background is on the prediction side. I believe that the money is in prediction. How do we get to that point? So, with that being said, I want to make sure that everyone, please use your phones. If you have a tablet, if you have a mobile device, I want to encourage you to use it. Everything I'm going to be showing you is interactive. So you can go to innerlifeonline.com conversations and interact with this presentation long after this presentation is over. And so what I wanted to talk about is basically how do we find conversations? You know, there's certain data points that get emitted out that means that people are starting to talk about you. How do you gather that? So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. I want to talk a little bit about the technology architecture. One thing I want to make sure, you don't have to invest in a certain specific technology to make this happen. You can use what you got. So I'm going to kind of bring that up. You can reuse. Because my heart's with the CIOs. You guys have been working your butts off trying to build warehouses and do PI and satisfy the business, and then someone else is actually bring another technology in. My goal is to be able to reuse the investment and make business happen. So I'm going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the insights versus conversations, something that's called big data drilling, and we're going to be talking about glass. I don't know if you know this, but in 18 months, our world is going to be changed. Whether you use an Apple iWatch, if that's what they call it, or Google Glass, it's going to change the way you do conversations with your customers. Completely change and disrupt. And you can acknowledge it or ban it, like we did with Facebook when it first came out. So I'm going to talk about how that comes in. Vivisection as a service is basically breaking down your customers into demographics, conversations as they're being talked about. That's just a really cool word to say segment. I just got tired of the word segment, so I used the thesaurus to find vivisection. It sounds cool. And then there's containment. Containment is for example, if something is negatively said about you, and you don't want to censor them, or you do not want to take it offline. You want to turn a bad experience into a learning experience for everyone. We call that containment. Where basically anything that's going negative, you can redirect it in a positive way. And the last one is impingement, which is also another word for ripple effect. One conversation in China can vastly affect all the way in the United States. One character said, another language will completely have repercussions in English in Alabama. And how to be able to trace that back to ground zero. Because that is key, to be able to figure out, maybe you ignore one conversation, but it could destroy your image. So those are the things I kind of wanted to bring out. So, first thing that we had to do, this was actually not intentional. We didn't intentionally try to create this kind of solution. We were asked. That's one of the reasons why I was in Dubai. I was actually working with a customer there for an airline company. I'm not going to say it. There, around Dubai. It was pretty obvious. But they're also looking for, trying to find conversations about the brand. And we wanted to find out, just instead of just listening. Because you know, if you just listen to social media, it's eavesdropping. I'm not sure how many of you during the lunch, did you just listen to other people talk and then interrupt them? No. You would listen to them, digest it, and maybe start your own conversation amongst yourselves. So what we're trying to do with this is just listening and eavesdropping or interrupting them can cause worse conversations. So what we try to do is look at a customer life cycle as they're trying to find your product, your bank, your service, your retail store, from start to finish. They haven't bought anything yet, but how do they find you? At each point, we call one called influence, one called research, one called connect, one called landing, and then we have one that says offsite and volunteer. Those are those stages. And other marketing people use different terms. But what this means is, I'm someone being influenced by the media. It's taking case in point the Apple iPhone in China. Right now there's a lot of negativity about Apple in China. And that was started by a lot of conversations for the customer service. People were upset. They didn't get the same customer services around the world. That began as a conversation. Then it became a media event. I believe CCTV did a expose on that. So those became the ground zero for the conversations. Those create data patterns, certain keywords, certain things being spread throughout the internet, through RenRen, through CNET. So that's where we find, that is where the influence starts to happen. And that's at that first point. Right? So we're taking this information, we're looking at patterns, especially from their origins. and looking at them and being able to say, okay, where do they go next? Then people researching it. Is it true? Or being able to find out, how can I not have bad customer service? Find it through, doing search, being able to look through apps, download those kind of things. So researching it themselves. There's conversation and search queries that actually get made that you can trace. So the initial conversation, bad customer service. Researching it, is it bad customer service? Then actually what we try to do is they find communities to get pissed off. Forums. Hong Kong, we know, we love some communities here. Hong Kong, especially China, is very big on community blogs. That's where we get pissed off together, collectively. And that's where we connect. Because we're very strong in the Occupy Central thing that's about to happen in July. That's where that is kind of spewing up. The dock situation that's happening, that's where that's spewing up. So they connect. Remember, think of the words that's coming out of my mouth. And think of the searches there on social media about the Central, Occupy Central, the dock workers. There's key words and key phrases there that you know that's where they're connecting together for the conversation. And of course, a landing page. So if you're Apple, then eventually they're going to come to, and I'm not picking on them, they're going to come to the Apple website. And they're going to be pissed off. Or they're going to come to the Facebook page, and they're going to be pissed off. And they're going to have conversations with you about that customer service piece. Now, it's going to either, and you can ignore it, but it will initially affect your back office, right? Because your transactions will go lower. People will buy less product. So you can initially see that the conversations can have a detrimental effect to sales. But then there's some off-site aspects. There's a lot of resellers around things and products and conversations. So for example, I'm on the Apple website. Then I have a spat, or I have a conversation with someone on Apple talking about the conversation that I'm upset with. Then I leave and go to a physical place. That's what this off-site is. They go to an off-site location to have a conversation, maybe at the Genius Bar, maybe at a reseller. How do you trace that conversation? It's human to human. The only way you can trace it, how we did it from a linkage perspective, is being able to look at the, it's not so showing up, but you see your orders, you see the sourcing, you see the call center information, the questions that are being asked. These inputs can be traced back. And then the last piece is what we call volunteer. This is when they resurface. So they go underwater here at this place to be able to talk to a human, to be able to have a physical interaction. Then they resurface, and here's where you know they're either a promoter or a detractor. So here's the entire conversation experience. Bunch of social media stuff happening. We're breaking it down into these phases. And the reason why? You need to make a decision, where do you want to stop that conversation or change the conversation? By the pattern. You're not at the mercy of the customer. If you see a certain pattern from a media thing, stop it there if you think it's negative. Or if you see they're coming to bitch and complain in a community forum, try to stop them there or try to negate it. So we're trying to show there are ways and stopgaps to be able to stop this conversation or change the conversation. So it's very generic, very basic. Let's go into how you can do that. Oh, well, before we do that, I wanted to talk about a little bit of technology, just quickly. As I was talking about earlier, something's big data. When I talk about big data, all these conversations and all this data, this data patterns. When I say data patterns, I'm looking at all of this. I'm looking at public domain information, blogs, forums, communities. I'm looking at news media. News media websites are so key to this. Paid information, like Nielsen, credit card, banking information that you can get from third parties. And I have another one here that's so important. Socially volunteered information. On your website, do they connect with Facebook or connect with LinkedIn? And so you know who they are? Because I have to say, if you don't do that, it's very hard to link the conversation to a physical person. So when they connect with Facebook and they volunteer something, and you start an interaction with them, they share something, you share something back. That's what we call social volunteer through LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+. Then I'm going to be bringing up a little bit later, human to machine, glass, Nike Fuel, be able to interact with that kind of information, telematics information. machine to machine for mining, that kind of thing, allowing people to use their upload their Word documents, Excel documents. So you can see there's a Mason-Dixon line here. There's external information, and there's internal information that you own. So internal information, this is stuff you can do yourself. You don't have to pay anyone. You have this. And of course, you have what everyone talks about. You got your Oracle, your DB2s, you got all your transactional stuff you have. So combining this all together, and I'm not going to go into the storage aspect of it, but I want to make sure it's very clear. Do not be fooled about predictive analytics. There's 3 versions of predictive analytics: math, non-math, black box. You do not have to use statistics to figure out what your customer is going to do. And actually, the Boston Bomber was used. We used a predictive engine for the Boston Bomber. It had nothing to do with statistics at all. It was based on a Bayesian model. It's outcome-based. No hypothesis. Basically taking real-time inputs and saying the outcome is this. So there's one thing, and the reason we never did this in the past was to compute non-math predictive analytics was incredibly hardware intensive. But now the technology has caught up with the model. The model's not new. It's an old model. But do some research on your own. Look up Hypercube, Bayesian, Grok, G-R-O-K. These are non-math predictive engines that you can feed them with all these inputs. Notice there's no warehouse here, by the way. I don't want a warehouse. And I don't want you to cleanse my data. Because if you cleanse my data, this breaks. If we cleansed the data for the Boston Bomber, we would have never found it. The missing information is key to finding the human behavior. So I just want to make sure that that's the kind of the pitch I'm making for how this technology works. And of course you have the math. You can always do the Revolution Analytics, the SAS, the SPSS, the Alpine, the MADLib, to just have your statistical as a backup. Or just to compare. Load balance. I'm an architect. Always load balance. Right? Your decisions. So I want to make sure that you know that this is very agnostic, very non-tool driven. And there's also, I forgot to mention the black box. Google offers a predictive API, which works really well, but you have no idea what model they use. They just come out with an outcome. And that's good, and it's bad, because you don't know what they're using to be able to self-teach yourself or find out how they're coming up with their outcomes. But it works. So, I just wanted to bring those up. Now, using this technology, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to look at all the conversations that are out there. We call these insights. The insights is basically first distinguishes between bots, trolls, competitors, and real conversations. One of the questions I always tell people, I don't care if anyone's doing any social media, first question you have to ask them, how many are fake? How many people are haters, which are trolls, and how many are competitors trying to talk bad about you? And then get rid of those out of your social media data dump. And then focus on the rest. Then start looking into that data to find out who's real. Now, I'm not saying that a competitor information talking negatively about you is not a good input to be able to figure out how you change the conversation. But what I'm trying to focus on is your customers are talking about you. They want to have a real conversation with you. And all your competitors are going to be spewing out whatever, negative stuff about you. Forget about that. Focus on the success. Or focus on the problem that the customer has. So what we do from an insights perspective is we're parsing all of this information and we're cutting it down the middle. What is bots, trolls, competitors? Cut that off the top. We only focus on real conversations. Again, we're making an assumption it's real conversations. And there's actually rules that we run to be able to determine the bots, trolls, competitors. And I can take those questions, how those rule engines work later on. Then once the real conversations, we parse through those. We look for promoters and detractors. Real conversations talking about you or your product or your service, who's promoting you and who's detracting you. And here's the key. Your best person to fight is your promoters promoting for you. Have you ever had, I guess I'd have to ask the ladies for this one, but have you ever met a guy it brags about himself all the time. Hey, I'm good at this, and I'm great at that. And after a while, you're like, you know what, I don't want to date this guy. He's a jerk. And as we, as companies, if we're bragging about ourselves to our customers, they're going to think, wow, what an ego. But if you focus on the promoters, the people that are talking positively about you, and you encourage them to talk more, give them discounts, loyalty points, send them a tweet, hey man, thanks, high five. I think you can make the fist bump with the icon thing, right? Then they will actually talk to your detractors, and that promotes. That can redirect the conversation without having to go offline or create censorship or delete the posts. So this is what we're starting to go down, this path. So that's the insights. Now the conversations, we're breaking them down into 3 services. One of these is breaking down the demographics, the geographic, the demographic, and the context of the conversation. That's what vivisection is. Containment is, you have a problem. Someone has talked bad about you. You need to deal with it immediately. And then impingement is, where's ground zero from that problem? And how do I stop it from happening in the future? And how did it spread? This is different, right? I don't think we've really struck into this conversation, but this is very important to kind of bring up that we've always been treating social media like it's that thing, but it's everyone that's in this room. It's a human interaction between each other, and we have to deal with social media the same way, using technology. And that technology is able to do it quickly as we can as humans now. Let me go a little bit more into it right now. So, how do you feed some of this stuff? How do you get some of this data in there? We call it big data drilling, which basically what we do is you could call it scraping. We scrape it. Now, I do not take Facebook or Twitter information, by the way. I only take public domain. I never take a Facebook, and I never take a Twitter or LinkedIn unless they volunteered on my website. Because I think that if you take it, unless they didn't, of course if they leave it public, it's for everyone, obviously. Maybe they don't understand the privacy rules. But anyway, what we do though is that when they volunteer information through your website about your product, your service, that is your information to take. And they're volunteering it for you, so it's easy for you to be able to digest. And the reason I bring this up is, if you stalk your customers, they will leave you. If you're watching everything and basically you start replying to them and they didn't give it to you on purpose, they will leave. And I always do a joke, what's the difference between a stalker and a friend? A stalker knows your birthday. Right? So it's a very different. So what we do with big data drilling is we're scraping all the websites on certain context words in all languages. Chinese, Japanese, Korean, English. We're looking and scraping. And we're also creating drill bits based on specific creators of content. For example, Rin, Sina. So we drill deep, get vast amounts. And I'm not just talking about drilling now. We have archive information of all the conversations being brought up. This is big data drilling. And we feed that in. That's what the concept of, and that's a really hot new topic. I'm not sure, has anyone dealt with big data drilling before? Or data drilling? But it's a really very fast way to be able to grab data and be able to parse it to look for conversations. I just want to throw this in here really quick. In the future, when you start having a conversation that is negative, when Google Glass comes out, I'm actually, one of the reasons I was in Dubai, they're going straight customer service with Glass. That basically, in intimate settings, or if someone's complaining online about you, they can actually send a Google Hangout immediately and say, hey, what's going on? Is there anything I can help? They can ignore the Google Hangout, and they can ignore the face-to-face interaction. But you're actually doing a direct conversation with that person that's complaining. Second thing you can do, they're wanting to do viral videos that address a problem. Has anyone seen the Old Spice ad in the United States? It's like, hey, good looking, they do that where they directly address the customers. That is going to be the power of Google Glass. And I'm not saying Google Glass is going to be the end-all, be-all, but it is going to allow you to, you cannot complain that you don't have a conversation with a customer. You can directly address them, and create a POV video saying, the problem you talked about, let me show you how it works. This is why it happened. This is how I resolved it, through the eyes of the customer service person. Quick YouTube video, up and running, made with Google Glass, sent reply directly as a little link, a Google link to a community board or to a Facebook page, and that's where we're seeing this is going to completely change from a wearable tech perspective. I just wanted to, it's kind of sticking out, sorry, I kind of stuck in the middle, but I just want to make sure I didn't forget it. The other one that I wanted to bring up as a service, how you segment your customers here. I think that it's very, very important, not only the conversations that they're having between each other, but also knowing where they're having them, what countries, what cities, what regions, and most importantly, when they cross over. If I'm speaking Chinese and pissed off about something, and then all of a sudden it is being sent to my uncle, who's in San Francisco, who speaks Chinese, and then he sends it to his nephew, who translated it to English, it's very important to know when that switch happens. That shows the ripple effect of a conversation, if it is negative or positive. And that's what we call vivisection, being able to trace the conversation, seeing when it switches out, and be able to do something with that. And we go from one language to another. Other one, containment. Containment really is about, one of the things is, especially when you're dating or you're married, right? When you get in a fight, you can't ignore it. I mean, you can, but you sleep on the couch, right? And so the issue here is you have to address it one way or the other. And have you noticed this? Have you noticed that most of the big negative issues get really, this is what we found from our findings from running proof of concepts based on this. Most of the issues of negativity happen on news media websites. There's a lot of ground zero, that's where it begins, and people put like a little link up there, hey, I've seen this before, and then they put a link and people follow that link. What we found from a containment side is, once you see people talking negatively, just put a video, a redirect to a video that says, hey, that's not correct. Has anyone seen the McDonald's ad where they explains how a burger why the burger looks different in the advertisements as when you eat it, right? And so one of the things they're trying to do is they're trying to deal with the issue head on, right in ground zero. Creating videos. Video is going to be such a personal, if you can't talk to them and call them, make a video and say why it happened, where there's an issue, and allow them to be able to get their frustrations out and explain why those things happen. Or a redirect to a community that you control so they can all kind of go and bitch and complain. That's a containment. You're not trying to stop them. You want them to get it out because you can learn from that. But you don't want them spewing viral crap all over the place and making you look bad. So containment as a service is really looking into being able to redirect them, to be able to get it out, and you can address it head on. Okay? Of course, containment is basically a very easy way is message propagation. How this gets to here. Where was ground zero? How did it start? Why did it spread? What made it worse? The ripple effect. And the most important is, what is the ground zero influence? I promise you, a lot of the negative issues we have going on happened 18 months ago, not now. It has just bubbled up. It's just like a fight with your marriage. It is never a fight about now. It's about a fight that happened 18 months ago that you had with your mother-in-law, and then it bubbles up, right? I'm sorry, I'm kind of giving my information away. But that is what impingement is. Being able to trace it all the way back to that ground zero point and making sure that never happens again. Oops. And that's all the services. I kind of gave a very high level to get you thinking in this direction. Feel free to check out the website. Send me emails or any links. I'd be glad to show you what we've done on proof of concept. But one thing I want to make sure is I get across. If you don't talk to your customers, some idiot will. And what you want to make sure is if they're being negative, shut them down or correct them. Don't delete them. That makes them worse. And if they're being positive, give them a thumbs up, fist bump, and let them promote you. And this is the power of what we have right now with open source technologies and big data and all technologies. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bernie. Thank you for giving very informative information. So here comes the second panel discussion of today. The topic is fulfilling big data potential, IT marketing collaboration, skills, best practice, and privacy. This session will be moderated by Mr. Chiseng Chen, who's the group editor of ComputerWorld Hong Kong. And without further delay, I'm going to let our session moderator, Chi, to take over.